Hello folks, I'm John Myrie and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show we have reports and tips for you from Jarrett McCarthy down at Hayward Bait and Bottle. And then we talk with pro angler Pete Maina, and then lastly some good walleye tips from fishing guide Jim Leahy. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
The fishing opener has come and gone. If you fished it from an old, inadequate boat, were stuck on shore, or worse yet, didn't go out at all, we can help. Hayward Power Sports has an awesome selection of new Lund boats, rigged and ready. You'll find the 1650 Angler, the 1775 Impact, the 1875 Crossover, and many more. We're offering massive Hayward Power Sports discounts up to $7,500, plus we'll throw in a free storage for next winter. Come see us at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in Northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray bake down draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service. The clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Big fish stories come to life at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. The world's largest shrine to freshwater anglers boasts a 4.5-story tall walk-through musky that's a half a city block long. It's like taking a peek into Granddad's old tackle box with thousands of mounted fish, antique outboard motors, and historical sport fishing artifacts. Stop in and take a chance on our 50-50 cash raffle. You could walk away with a pile of cash. See the big ones that didn't get away at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Highways 27 and B in Hayward. Open daily, including Sundays, through October 31st at 9:30 a.m. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom-cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward.
Today, anglers fish longer. Today, anglers fish harder. Today, anglers rely more than ever on their electronics. It all comes down to catching more fish, and today, anglers rely on Amped Outdoors lithium batteries, period. Visit ampedoutdoors.com today to power your outdoor experience.
We're down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and I'm talking to Jarrett McCarthy. And Jarrett, what are you hearing as far as the fishing? Fishing season's been open now for a couple of weeks, and I know there's been some people out there.
Yeah, fishing's been really good. Speaking from experience, been out doing some really good things for crappies and bass, and hearing a lot of guys doing really well for walleye out there right now. Seeing some guys catching some northerns, so it's kind of a grab bag of fish out there. Just depends on what you're looking for.
What, as far as the walleye fishing out there, any particular water has been better than others? And what are they using for bait? Do they switch to leeches yet and crawlers? Or
So it still seems like we have quite the mix out there. We got some guys using minnows, some guys using leeches. It's not really a specific body of water. We're hearing guys doing, well on a whole bunch of different bodies of water. But it sounds like the walleyes are already a little bit ahead of the game from where they usually are. It seems like most of the guys are out there getting them in like 8 to 15 feet of water. So usually this time of year, guys are still up shallow fishing for them right now, throwing, crankbaits, jerkbaits, stuff like that. And we're still hearing some of those reports of guys getting them in the skinny waters, like 3 or 4 feet right now. But a lot of guys are doing well out in those mid-depth range.
The other thing that a lot of guys are after right now is always going to be panfish, crappie fishing. I don't know the crappies. I think some lakes they haven't spawned on, other lakes they're spawned or have spawned.
So we were on a lake probably about a week and a half ago, a dark water lake, and we had water temps since, 64, 65 degrees. Those males were actively up spawning. And then yesterday we were out on a clear body of water, and we had finally reached 60, 61 degrees, and it seemed like all the bigger females and some of the males had just started moving up onto the shoreline to get ready to go out on the bed. So, it seems like if they're not there doing it right now, they're getting ready to do it, and I'm sure there's a couple lakes that they're already past doing it, but I'm figuring that we're probably going to see the conclusion of that come sometime this week, early next week.
They'll still stay relatively shallow usually, though. If you got good weeds, they'll stay in the weeds. It'd be a while yet before they move out in that deep basin, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as soon as they get done spawning, they're going to move out into the first little bit of cover that they have, whether it be a weed line, whether it be a break, whether it be some wood along the shoreline that they could just kind of hover to and recover. But, yesterday we were out fishing and we had, groups of fish in on shore in 2 to 3 feet of water, and that seemed like that was the second wave of fish. And the first wave of fish that had been up there spawning was already sitting out in 10 to 15 feet of water. They were actively feeding on the surface. You could actually see them coming up, hitting bugs and what have you. And we cast it out to them, and we caught 4 or 5 of them. It's just harder to get onto those fish as they're roaming out in that deeper water looking for food.
Well, I've noticed when they're out there in the deeper weeds and in the weeds, 8, 10, 12 feet of water, if they get down in the weeds, it's a little harder to catch them. You got to get down into the weeds, get close to them. But toward evening, a lot of times they'll start coming up in those weeds, and a lot of times just a plastic or any type of crappie bait set a foot and a half below the bobber, just over the top of the weeds, is very productive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what time we were out there last night. We were probably out there 7:30, and they were just starting to surface and eat bugs and stuff off the top of the water. But you can definitely set your baits or throw plastics or whatever right underneath the surface for those fish as soon as you get later into the evening. But if not, you need to be running that bait almost right over the top of the weeds to get them to come out in the daytime.
Yeah. Heard anything on the bluegills yet to speak of?
No, yesterday we were looking around and we saw mostly crappies up shallow. I know that they are soon to be coming in, if they haven't come in already, on some lakes, because they should be getting ready to do their thing here. We're probably still a little ways off here, probably about 2 or 3 weeks.
And I know there's a few guys pike fishing out there. Pike fishing is good. And we've got some lakes up here. They're encouraging people to keep more pike on. And pike are good eating, actually.
Absolutely, yeah. We saw a lot of DNR regulation changes in favor of keeping some of the pike up here. And they're an excellent white meat, to put on the table if you're sitting around a campfire or what have you up here. But yeah, fishing's been really good for pike. All those pike are up shallow right now. They're chasing the bluegills and the crappies around, too.
And you guys artificial on them, or is the guys starting to throw some of the sucker minnows out there?
You can do both. As the water temps get a lot warmer, the artificials are going to take, a heavy favorite or whatever, just because a lot of those bigger minnows won't do well in that warm water, especially taking them out of cold water, in your local bait shops or what have you, but they will work.
In the bigger pike, as soon as that water starts to get warm, they vacate it and they move out to that deeper weed edge or the main basin.
Yep, they'll head for deep waters. They'll sit on those points, they'll sit on those deep weed lines. They follow the food just like everything else. So, as soon as all the panfish are done spawning, they move out to the deep weeds and those pike will follow them.
One of the best tactics I had years ago was slow roll and musky-sized spinner baits out in 18, 20 foot over deep sandgrass, and we were catching these good-sized pike.
Yeah, a lot of good options for them out there.
And bass fishing. Bass fishing's been pretty good, too, for especially smallmouth.
Yeah, yep. A lot of fish have started to come up shallow. We saw a lot of largemouth up shallow yesterday. Smallies that we were seeing, they're not quite up shallow. It seems like they're still on that first break. They're in anywhere from, 6 to 12 feet of water or what have you. But a lot of fish getting caught on jerk baits out there right now, some on live bait. But fishing has been steady. It's been really good.
And in the shop here, you guys are all stocked up, and it'd be the musky opener this weekend as this airs, and you're going to have somebody in here tying baits for people and everything else.
Absolutely, yeah. Keith will be in here from Musky Thriller, tying up baits. If you're looking for a custom bait or custom colors, anything that you're looking for, he'll tie it right in front of you, so it'll be awesome to have him back in the shop. Musky wall is all set, so if you're looking for anything musky tackle-wise, we're here for you.
I think there's probably over 90 feet of wall there with musky baits.
I've even heard that some of the baits even catch fish.
Well, thanks a lot, Jarrett, for coming out here.
Thanks, John.
Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. When we come back, we'll be talking to pro angler Pete Maina, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop for the Hayward area's largest selection of rods, reels, lures, fishing electronics, boating supplies, and much more. Whether you fish for bass, walleyes, panfish, or muskies, gear up for the upcoming fishing season, and if you're getting ready for the spring turkey season too, they also have just about everything you'll need for a successful season. In the bottle shop, you'll find a full selection of beer and liquor. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
Get out of your chair and into fresh air with a new Can-Am side-by-side or ATV from Hayward Power Sports. Hurry in for a very limited number of select 2023 side-by-sides that offer up to $3,500 in rebates, plus financing as low as 1.99% for 36 months. Meanwhile, our selection of 2024s is huge and offer rebates up to $1,000 and again, 1.99% financing for 36 months. If you enjoy the creature comforts, test drive an incredibly popular Can-Am Defender HD10 side-by-side. It comes standard with a full cab including heat and air conditioning. Looking for a value-priced machine? The Can-Am Defender XT HD7 features a winch, roof, front bumper, and full skid plate. With the $1,000 rebate, your price is just $15,399. Your new Can-Am side-by-side or ATV is waiting for you at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
Certain restrictions apply, subject to credit approval. See your dealer for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and ride.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau. For more information on lodging and vacationing here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Well, folks, you know, now that musky season is open, on this week's show we talk with pro angler Pete Maina about musky fishing, technology, and some of the things we can do or should do to preserve our musky fishery and even make it better. Pete, you know, all this electronics we got nowadays can help, but it's not a magic bullet. I mean, you know, lately there's been a few people out there really screaming about this forward-facing sonar. You know, I've been using forward-facing sonar for 2 years, and yeah, I see if a guy gets really, really good with it and he wants to be a violating type, it could be a harmful thing, but I see a lot of good benefits to it as far as teaching people what fish do, how they respond to baits and stuff. But even then, the electronics is not the magic bullet. I mean, it takes some angler skills to start with to know where to start looking, and it takes some skills of learning how to run that equipment.
Oh, yeah, well, there's no doubt about that. And the whole forward-facing sonar thing, you know, I'm kind of agnostic about it to some degree. Everybody's got their personal preferences, and everybody's got their ideas on fair chase and this, that, and the other. But it's funny how, and I have to say, forward-facing was a pretty big jump from, you know, some of the other stuff that we had, because you can actually see the fish, see your bait, and this, that, and the other. But still, like you said, you have to use it. And basically, it's not the only reason for the big jump. I guess, like always, you know, we got to be careful about our fisheries. We've talked about that for years. And, you know, that means that every angler's got to keep a few less, be better at handling, you know, the different things. The one thing that I do worry about with forward-facing sonar, depending on where fish are, of course, but if it's a situation where they're easy to find with forward-facing sonar, and people can camp on these fish with live bait, which is common. That's something you really got to be careful, because if you're the type that's a little more lazy and wait too long, technically you could release a whole bunch of fish that aren't going to live.
Yeah, deep water situations too.
Well, yeah, you certainly got to watch for that. So, you know, you definitely got to be careful. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, the whole idea of arguing about it. I don't know. You know, you just got to see how the fisheries can definitely handle it. The one thing that's odd too, and I don't know what your thoughts are on this, because I haven't used it a whole ton, but a lot of people are saying that the fish are feeling it and running from it in a lot of cases.
Actually, I've seen it. Yeah. I've seen it, especially bigger fish. It seems like the bigger fish. And then, on the other hand, sometimes you'll see the fish will stay there. You know, fish got to be able to feel that. But, you know, I think all this stuff, we've seen such a tremendous progression. In your years as an angler and mine as a guide, we go back a lot of years. I think the biggest thing out there, if you want to talk about something that allowed anglers to catch more fish than anything else, is GPS and these lake maps.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why I said we can't blame it all on forward-facing sonar. Forward-facing sonar's gotten all the heat and all the attention because, like I said, it was a big jump, I guess, from side imaging.
A huge jump.
It's huge. And, the argument, you certainly can't blame the technology companies. They're trying to, produce products that help people catch fish, and that's how they make money, and that's what they do. But at the end of the day, it's been a gradual thing, and you and I are guilty, John.
Yep.
Everybody, there's social media, there's more information sharing. For years, you and I have been trying to tell people how to catch more fish, and all of this does result in more pressure on the fisheries, and that's my only real comment on it is that, if we're going to continue to grow the sport, which we've all talked about for years, the companies want to grow the sport because they want more customers. We are going to have to keep an eye on it, though, and make sure. I do think that if we're going to continue to grow it, because the fisheries are finite, obviously that we're not making more actual fisheries, we may have to stock a little more to be realistic with it, but we'll see. It's a monitor. It's a combination of people being good at handling, being very selective with their harvest, all these different things, some of the regulations. I always try and stay away from regulation as much as possible, but when you see a fishery getting depleted, you got to do something about it from a regulation standpoint too, and just monitor this stuff. But and there's nothing wrong with stocking either. If we got more and more people doing it, you put more fish in there.
I think one good thing about all this is going to bring about more awareness to a lot of people as far as handling fish and doing stuff, and it'll probably bring about some different looks at regulation. Maybe the DNR will start to get more proactive on stuff and look at some of the bag limits like we see, and some of them I see on the conservation hearings this year. They were asking for be able to have a 10 panfish limit with 5 of one species, which, Minnesota's proven that works already. So there's a lot of different things there. And talking about angler pressure, I think it's even more crucial in low-density fish like muskies, Pete, because we've seen, and there's guys want to blame all kinds of things for why they seem to not be able to catch muskies out there, but they want to seem to blame all kinds of things. But we've seen lakes go from being hot lakes to where you can't hardly catch a muskie on them. And that's strictly because they dogpile on the lakes and there's just a tremendous amount of pressure on those fish.
Yeah, that's very simply probably the biggest part of it. And muskie fishing has grown. And then you had the electronics and the maps and everything else we talked about. That's the thing, the good lakes, when you say dogpile, boy, the people get on it quick, and with the knowledge and the electronics these days, that's one thing I look around and I see very few anglers that aren't very good these days. Yeah. They're fishing good spots. They know what they're doing. They're using their electronics. They're where the fish are. So there is a significant increase in the pressure just because of that. The fish are seeing way more baits getting captured more often. So it's, it's one of those things we need to keep an eye on, and any kind of stocking should be spread out as much as possible too. You would really want to avoid, in my opinion, getting any particular lakes that much more populated than the other ones. To me, that'll prevent, to a certain extent, the dogpiling. And, obviously you're still going to have only so many trophy lakes, as far as growth and that kind of thing. But, try and keep the populations even, try and spread the populations out so we get less of that dogpiling, I guess we're going to use. But that's been an unfortunate thing over the last few years. Very quickly, you can get on some bodies of water, and I'm not going to bother mentioning them, but yeah, it's just like it gets to the point where you don't even want to go anymore. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many people fishing this particular body of water now. You almost can't find at least a normal spot to fish.
Seems like every lake that gets hot, every place, it winds up on a downturn.
Yeah, and unfortunately that is the end result. That will, I don't know, obviously some of the fish are going to die when there's that many. There's a certain amount of mortality that, there's nothing you can do about. And then there's delayed mortality and all these different things. But yeah, if too much pressure gets borne on a particular body of water, it can kill it, and kill it pretty fast. I don't think it's, all depletion. It's just that those fish eventually get dizzy from all the baits.
They get smart.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about maps a little while ago, because I could remember back when I was in the early days guiding, and you were just getting into guiding after I'd been there for a while doing. And a couple of the lakes that you kind of set all them records on, catching a lot of muskies, there was a ton of structural elements in those lakes that weren't on any map.
Right.
And they were not on any map. I mean, a bunch of spots, and all of a sudden they're all over these maps.
Yeah, that's I can tell you those great maps, and I use them now. So I'm a hypocrite, I guess. But that was my first grumpy old man moment when those came out, because there were so many bodies of water. In particular, at that time, I had put thousands, by then hours, on Mille Lacs Lake trying to figure out the rock structure over there. And I'll never forget that, because I had put all that time in, and I was literally, I sound like an arrogant you-know-what right now, but I was literally better than anyone, and the only one really fishing the rocks out there, because most of the fish were in the weeds, and most of the anglers were in the weeds. And then those maps came out. Yeah. And boy, everything changed.
Same thing on Leech, so everybody fished the weeds. Nobody fished the rocks years ago, hardly.
That's true.
That's
bet. True.
A lot of great information there, Pete. Very interesting talking to you. It always is. I want to thank you for coming on here. You got a website out there, too, that if people want to keep up track of what you've been up to?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is just go to PeteMaina.com. You got the YouTube stuff there and all the social media. And, you can buy a Musky Suck book.
A lot of good stuff on there. You've had some pretty real informative podcasts or stuff that you put up, videos you put up, too.
Yeah, we started. I'm working with a guy by the name of Dave Brown now, who's very talented in the editing space, and we've been doing some different things, touching on some of these topics, like we were just talking about, forward-facing sonar and the handling and records and big fish and different. So we do a little bit of everything. Some educational stuff, how to tie knots, and but all over the map, and actual fishing pieces. But it is interesting to get some other people on our show and talk about some of these topics, and it's actually really interesting to see some of the feedback that people provide.
You bet. Well, it's kind of our job now. We're getting to be the older guys out there. I mean, I got a lot of years on you yet, but, it's kind of our job to make sure that we try to make things a little better than what we started with, if we could.
Well, that's the whole idea, and you definitely need to maintain it. At the end of the day, that's the only real scary thing to me, is that we could, potentially, if we're not careful, lose control of some fisheries, and it can take a long time to build them back up. So, but, otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, all the technology and everything, we can learn to preserve the fisheries as we go, I think, if everybody's careful and trying to be knowledgeable on that. But at the end of the day, we all need to park our egos, because I've always said that as a professional angler for years, and very few people have done as much television as I have. I can tell you what the real secret to television is. You try and find the best fisheries. All right, it's not the only secret. It's all the other things John and I have talked about here with presentations and stuff, and being good at all of that patterning and trying different things and blah, 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 blah is going to catch you more fish. But you search out healthy fisheries, and at the end of the day, we all need to think about that, because, you can't catch stuff that isn't there. If the fish aren't swimming around, pretty hard to catch them.
Pretty well said there, Pete. I want to thank you for taking the time with us here.
Yeah, you bet, John.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine sponsors that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll be talking walleye fishing with fishing guide Jim Leahy. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hey folks, come on over to Hayward Ace Hardware and check out the area's largest selection of firearms, ammo, and accessories. We carry top brands like Browning and Sig Sauer, and we have a great selection of the newest and hard-to-find models. We've got a large selection of ammo with more coming in daily. If you need a scope, we carry great brands like Leupold, Hawk, and EOTech, and we'll even mount it and bore sight it for you too. We even sell suppressors and silencers. And don't forget to check out our Guns of the Week. Huge discounts on a variety of pistols, rifles, and shotguns that change every week. So stop on in to Hayward Ace Hardware, your firearms superstore. Hayward Ace Hardware, Highway 63 North in Hayward, or give us a call at 715-634-8700.
Hayward Animal Hospital is a full-service medical and surgical hospital featuring on-site laboratory, digital and dental x-ray, in-house pharmacy, and online store. Dr. Ostrander has 40 years of experience dealing with illnesses, injuries, surgery, and dentistry. Hayward Animal Hospital offers urgent care appointments and emergency surgery daily. Please call early in the day for these appointments. They open at 8 a.m. Hayward Animal Hospital is located 1 mile east of Hayward on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Hey folks, the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach on Highway K between the Big Lakes has groceries, ice, beer, liquor, and pop, and now has all new tackle and bait supplies. All current antiques and household items are now on sale and all must go to make room for the sport shop. That's at the Log Cabin Store in Northwoods Beach between the Big Lakes.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment. Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler, as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com and then just click on Area Guides.
Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And on this part of the show, we've got some great walleye tips for you from Hayward Area Fishing Guide Jim Leahy.
Jim, you mentioned slip bobber rigs, and that's kind of a real popular way, and it can be absolutely deadly, sometimes more than anything else. What are some of the mistakes you see people make fishing slip bobber rigs that they don't get bit, don't catch fish?
From what I see, the hook makes a big difference, and fresh live bait makes a big difference.
Depth makes a difference.
Yeah,
too.
and of course the depth. On a slip bobber rig, the deeper the weeds, the better. Now sometimes when it gets really, really hot in July or August, you can actually catch those fish in the heavy weeds where there's little holes within the weeds, and you throw your slip bobber rig in that. But basically, I would say the biggest mistake would be using too big of a hook, too much weight, and kind of the presentation of not. You have to be quiet. It's kind of like hunting. You have to be sneaking around a weed bed and not throwing an anchor out, and not you need some buffer if you are going to anchor. And these fish are in 5 to 7 feet of water. They spook easily. So I would say that would be the biggest thing.
One of the things we see going on a lot of walleye fishing on clearwater lakes is the guys relying on aggressive presentations, trying to trigger fish. In a lot of places on flowage, you're limited to that. I mean, you're not going to throw a jig and wrap out there in some of the places and some of that stuff, but there are a few places that you can snap jig and stuff, and actually crankbaits are one of the things that trigger fish.
Yeah, like I said, on the crankbaits, you have to kind of pick the day on that. Low light conditions, and wind and rain, and the wind, typically, I would want a south or a southwest wind, not an east wind, because the fish are less aggressive on an east wind. You can catch those fish. That would be a good slip bobber day or a plastic day. But wind and how aggressive the fish are, and typically you get a nice southwest wind, fish are going to be a little more aggressive, and that's where that crankbait is nice.
Flowage fishing is a little bit different than fishing the big clear lakes, I think.
Oh, it's a lot different. The deep clear water lakes, a shallow bite on, let's say, round or grindstone is, 12, 14 feet. A shallow bite on the Nelson Lake or the Chippewa flowage is 4 to 6 feet. So that alone is a huge difference.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at wnoradio.com. From there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications. Any and all views expressed are not necessarily those of the station.